Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamley. I have a question. With all that is going on in our society today, are you at peace? Or do you find yourself with a shorter fuse? Do you have less tolerance for things that used to be no big deal? Are you angry or sad? Are you anxious or depressed? And what about those around you, your children, spouse, parents, friends? These are uncertain times, and uncertainty creates stress. So how do you protect your peace? We'll have some answers when we talk with therapist Cherise Josie. That's next on Another View, right after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamley. A very special thank you to all who joined the WHRO Public Media family during our spring membership drive last week. As usual, our Another View audience came through, and we more than doubled our $2,000 match. So thank you so very much for your support of Another View. We appreciate you, and you can always go online to whro.org/donate and become a member. So I was having a conversation recently with friends, and we were talking about what's happening economically, politically, and socially in the country right now, and how we are dealing with it. And it was an interesting conversation because each person had a different way of coping. One said they no longer watch news, any news, because it's just too stressful. One said she's increased her therapy sessions. Another said her social activism has increased because she has to do something. Everyone in the conversation agreed that protecting their peace, their mental health, was paramount. And that's what we're going to talk about today with Cherise Josie. She is a licensed clinical social worker, a clinical social work therapist, and a women's leadership coach. And we welcome her, as always, back to Another View. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me again.
Good. We love having you on the show. And I'm glad that you're doing well right now as we're talking about how do we protect our peace. You know, do things feel different this time? You know, we've been through societal stuff, you know, forever. There's always something going on. Yes. But do things feel different this time?
Things feel extremely heavy right now. And I think there's a constant state of heaviness. And it's that way because we don't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. When we know what to expect, then we know how to pivot, right? Like, okay, this is going on. I know what direction to go on. And right now, I think there is a universal unknown. And I think it makes all of us so uncomfortable of, will this affect me? It has affected me. What about my family members? What about my children? All these things. And very heavy.
And, you know, there's even, at least in the research that I've been doing, they call it political stress. Mm-hmm. But it's actually crossing all of the societal issues that we face today. Mm-hmm. But because it's so much so fast, is it also affecting our ability to have hope? And is hope still important?
You know, one of the things I always would say is that, man, if we don't have hope, what do we have? And now I think that's something that's really being tested. And it's being tested in real time, right? And it's tested in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. It's like my hope is being tested. And it's why I think now in the season of just a heavy, I'm going to say burden, right? Just this heaviness that we're feeling is why it's so important to be present. Because I still think it's true that we have to have hope. If we're not having hope of something and someone, then what are we moving for? But now that hope has to be so intentional, and we have to move it down to, I have hope in this literal moment. I have hope for this next hour. I have hope, right?
Yeah, because that's talking about staying present.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, you look forward to the future. You would look, and really this covers everybody. This is regardless of your political persuasion or whatever. We're talking about a general feeling day to day of the heaviness, as you talked about, and how critical it is to stay present in the moment, because the future is just too broad, too
unknown.
Deal with.
It's unknown. And I remember when I was in college and I had this personal gym trainer, right? And I'm trying to figure out the gym and I'm having a hard time and getting through these reps. And I remember something he said at that time. He said, if you want to help to get through these 12 reps, every time you do a rep, breathe out and count. As you breathe, 1, 2. And now I think that's how our life is now. It's like, I need to breathe. What am I breathing out, right? Breathe out. You got this. We're going to figure this out. There's no other option but up, right? Whatever I need to say to myself to stay present, to make sure I'm monitoring how I'm feeling, how my clients are feeling, how my children are feeling, how my spouse, how the people around me is feeling. I need to take that one breath. And right now, if that's all I have for that moment, that's all you have for that moment, take that breath, but say something with it. What's the hope that we're leaning on? And it's okay if that hope is 30 seconds long. We're going to have another breath, right, for the next hope, that we need to keep moving forward in that way.
So people who are experiencing real-time trauma, in terms of, they may have lost their job, or someone in their family has lost their job. They may be worried about whether or not they'll be deported.
Yeah.
These are like huge issues that people are concerned about. How do we know when we're moving beyond the I need to take a breath to I'm in full-blown anxiety?
Yeah. You said something really important, right? You use the word trauma. And I want to make sure that trauma is something that's unexpected, we didn't plan for, we didn't ask for, but we have no choice but to deal with it.
Wow.
Right? And so that leads to what you said, like this anxiety, this unknown. We have to know that anxiety is trying to tell us something. And we experience anxiety differently. People have their own ways to know how they're feeling anxious. But know that this is trauma reactions that's leading to this uncertainty with this anxiety. And it may sound a little cliche in terms of, well, what can you control? But if even in that moment, the most I can control is literally breathing right now, I did good. I did good in this moment. If the most I can control is not to monitor my patience when I'm interacting with other people, I did a good job. I did a good job. Because when you're in crisis and kind of imagine you're kind of in the center of what feels like this fire, right? I can't just jump over the fire, can't walk through it. I'm here in the middle, right? Yeah. And for some people, I may be on fire, or I may not be on fire, but either way, I'm still affected. And so what can I do in this moment right now? I can breathe. I can close my eyes. I can say whatever I need to say that's true, right? And I would encourage people to lean into whatever that hope is, right, for you. And let's keep it simple. But we are dealing with a traumatic situation in real time of people's livelihoods, and we can't minimize that. I wouldn't encourage anyone to just kind of say, well, this is a moment in time. It is, but this moment's going to last for a while. We're going to feel it for a while.
And that's really interesting you bring that, because I do hear a lot of this too shall pass.
Yeah.
This is only for a moment, take a breath, etc. But when you are feeling anxious, when you're feeling to a point where you're almost, and I want to ask you about what is the difference between an anxiety and a panic attack. I mean, the escalation of all of that. Yeah. Those words, are those helpful or are they hurtful? Not hurtful, but because sometimes when you're in that moment and somebody is saying that to you, you're like, yeah, right.
It's like when you're mad and someone says, calm down. I don't want to hear calm down in the middle while I'm angry. None of that is helpful to me, right? And so while I think it's a good intention, I think there has to be this huge acknowledgement of this is heavy. I'm feeling heavy. I don't like not being in control of my basic household, of my basic needs that I need. It should not feel this way. And I think there needs to be an acknowledgement of that. I think as we move through this, it has to be also an intentional move, right? At some point, we kind of just go through life and we see what happens. It's like, no, there is a level of trauma, right, that people are experiencing. That means I need to have self-awareness like I've never had before. If I'm not sleeping well, if I'm not functioning the way that I want to function, that means I need to do something differently because I want to have some rest. Even that's let me lay down and all I'm going to do is close my eyes. Maybe I don't feel like I'm asleep, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to keep my eyes shut. We can start with that just simplicity of moving through this uncertainty. So when we say, well, do things that you can control or this too shall pass. Yeah, it's true, but let's define what that means, right?
And sometimes then it may be, if you're the receiver of that person saying, I'm talking to you because I need to talk to somebody, that you can acknowledge that you're going through the same thing.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you don't have to be the fixer.
Right. right.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. I'm wondering, are you dealing with stress at this time? Are things feeling heavier for you than normal? Give us a call and let us know how you're coping. If you have some coping skills that you might want to share with our audience, we would really love to hear from you. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So, we get anxious. We hear a headline. I just heard a headline before we came on the show, and I was like, oh, no, because more job cuts are coming for Health and Human Services. So you have that level, but then sometimes it continues to escalate if you don't deal with it at that level. Is that right? So how do you know the difference? How do you know if you're moving towards a panic attack as opposed to I'm just anxious? And is there such a thing as just anxious? In other words, do we need to pay attention?
Yeah, a panic attack comes pretty quickly. Panic attack for some people might feel like a heart attack. You really feel that really intense physical where you may not know that it's a panic attack unless you've either had one before or you have that self-awareness. But if not, you might feel like you're having a heart attack. So anxiety is more of a slow moving thing. So again, people experience it differently, but sometimes we can't concentrate, we can't sleep, we can't focus. Sometimes there's physical, heart beating, shoulder tension, a lot of different clues that say something about me is not going well. I'm feeling this pressure. And this is where we get to go from the external of what's going on in the world to, I get to focus on me because my body is trying to tell me something. This anxiety is telling me something. And I'll tell you, anxiety doesn't like secrets. Anxiety does not like secrets. So that means you need to name it. I'm feeling anxious because stop for a moment. Did I just hear something? Did I read something? Did I experience something? Did I think? Name it. Call it out.
Call it out. What is causing?
What is this thing? And so now we're putting you in a level of control where you can say, oh, now that I have this anxiety, I know what it's from. I know what it's about. Now I know what street I'm on. Now I can start building my houses to start saying, now I'm no longer focused on this external. I'm focused on whatever this thing I'm experiencing to decrease that. So if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I think I'm just going to go outside right now. And we're only focused on, does your body like this? I think my body does like me being outside right now. I'm going to go take a nap. When you wake up, how do you feel? I think my body needed a nap, right? So we're going to name it. We're going to acknowledge this is what it is. And then we're going to do something about that. And it goes back to us. And it goes back to that hope again, right? And now, I'm feeling in control in this moment. And we're going to celebrate this moment.
We have a lot of federal workers who live in our area who have been affected by the changes. And for those who are still working, that's a different kind of stress in the fact of either you don't know if it's coming for you, or you're trying to now do more work to keep the train moving, so to speak. What are some tips that you would give to people who may find themselves in that situation?
I think even before now, I think there's always a level of, at least should be, a level of care, right, of the climate that you're working in, of your colleagues, and of your own self-care in your work. And I think as we navigate this time, I think is really a time for us to come together even more. Check in on your colleagues.
Yeah.
Right? And there's this thing of come back, do the work, do the work. But it's hard to do the work when you feel like you're on fire, right? It's hard to do the work when the climate around you is so stressful. And if there's ever a time to lean on your colleagues, it's going to be now, right? If there's ever a time to say, well, I work through lunch. No, we're not celebrating that in this season. We're going to take our breaks, right? We're going to take our scheduled lunch breaks. We're going to do all those things because we have to literally breathe right now, and small things matter. When before maybe you can go the day, it's a busy day, I skipped it. No. The small things are going to matter so that we can function as we go through the evening and function through the next day. But everything has to be intentional for how we're going to navigate ourselves internally and as a collective within our units.
And I know you coach women leaders. Do you have a word for them in terms of, because now they've got to also be cognizant of where their staffs are, what's happening, while also managing their own stress,
right?
Because they're pretty much in the same boat. But as a leader, what else should they take into consideration?
One of the things I started incorporating in my work with women leaders is focusing on your strengths. What are you good at, right? And if any other time is like, I need to learn now, what is it that I'm good at? Because we can't solve this global problem right now. We can't solve all of these things. But if I'm going to manage myself as a leader and I'm going to lead effectively, I need to do that in the area of what I'm good at. Am I good at relationship building? Am I good at strategic things? Am I good at influencing the climate around me? What am I good at? And then the part that maybe I'm not so good at, I'm not going to overcompensate because people are having a hard time. But guess what? Someone else in here is good at that better than me. Hey, I need your support with this, right? Can you're really good at, can you help? And let's kind of work together to have this collective unit navigate through that. So I really want leaders to focus on, what are you good at? We're going to maximize that strength. And you're going to know and saying, this part, I'm not going to fake it, because we don't have time for that either, right? It's too much. We have nothing else to pull from to try to fake anything right now. I'm going to pull someone else who's good at this, who's better at this than me, so that everyone, and we can manage this.
So again, do you think, Sharice, that this whole experience that we're all experiencing right now will bring community, whatever that community is, work community, life community, church community, et cetera, will it bring us closer together, do you think?
I think so, and I hope so. And I think at some level, people are scared to have conversations, because you don't always know where people stand or what their experiences are. But there are some universal themes that we're all dealing with. And I think at some level, everyone has a sense of worry and concern. We can communicate over that universal collective. I do have a worry and concern going on too, right? And we can bond over that. And sometimes I think leaving out some of the other stuff that might cause some conflict, I think we all are dealing with something, and we need to continue that conversation to build and remain together and united as we're going through this time.
It reminds me, I wanted to ask you this question about conflict in conversation, because sometimes you find yourself either on social media or in person, face to face, where you have a difference of opinion with someone else. I know that people say all the time you should just walk away or stop doom scrolling or whatever. But what I want to ask you is, what do you do with your feelings? Because just because you walked away, you still may be upset about what you heard or what that conversation was. So how do you de-escalate, I guess is the question, once you've walked away?
Yeah,
You've been cognizant enough to say, okay, I need to get out of here because this is not working for me.
Right,
but at the same time, you're still feeling it, you know?
So one of the things that I put on a lot of my social media posts is we don't waste time over here. And with all that's going on in the collective heaviness, right, and the heaviness that feels daily, how do you want to use your time? I don't want to use my time de-escalating from someone that I probably don't have a relationship with and probably minimal to no capacity. We have different views. Okay, understood. But how much energy do I want to give this? Probably minimal to none. So let me refocus, kind of what we were talking about earlier, right? Let me refocus back on the street that I'm on, that I need to breathe so that I can be who I need to be for the people that I serve and for myself. That would be a better use of my time. So yes, it's going to take an intentional, I need to shift right now because I can give this a lot of energy of something that I can't control, not going to change, or I can actually refocus and do something that's actually going to have a good return on investment of my time and energy. And that's what I'm going to choose to do.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. What kinds of conversations are you having within your own household about what is going on? What are you all doing to be able to come together as a unit? Give us a call. Let's talk about that. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. How do we talk to our children about what's happening now?
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes we'll keep children out of what we call adult things, right? And I don't know that that's possible, you know, in this time between conversations going on and news and different beliefs. Depending on your children's age, we still going to have some conversations, right? Whether it's about race relations, how you're treated, warning signs, things to look out for. If someone says or does this, this is how you need to handle it. We have to have some open conversations with our children about what's going on. And I don't even know that's non-negotiable at this point.
Because the kids need that power, that knowledge, so that they will know how to deal with it. And for them, if they come to you and they're anxious, then, you know, what type of things do you need to be paying attention to so that you know whether your children are just going through something in this moment or if this is turning into something more serious?
Yeah, if your kids are anxious and whatever that means for your children, hoping you're having a conversation with them or you know it's a change in their behavior or their patterns to know that something is going on with your child. When you're talking with your children, do as we encourage adults. We can't solve the problem, right? We can't promise better. Don't know what better looks like right now and when better will come. Let them know what is available. I'm here from you as your parent. These are other things that I know that soothes you. But if you still notice your child's having a hard time that's impacting other areas of their life, concentration, school, behavior, moods, then you might need to get some more support for your children. So definitely encourage some therapy for your children, some other outlets to kind of get them back into themselves again.
But as parents, we do need to pay attention to what's happening to our kids. What about racial trauma? Because with the changing of, you know, the elimination of DEI programs, and I think it's even more than the program as it is about trying to erase a heritage, trying to erase who we are. I heard someone say at a cocktail party, said, well, we, meaning Black people, they were talking about, we're going to be okay because we've been through this trauma before. Other people are the ones that are going to suffer because they've never had to experience what we're experiencing now. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but my question is, how do you think this racial trauma that is happening now will impact our collective Black community?
Yeah, you know, I think now we are living what we read about. right? We read about in school and we heard about, and it's like, oh, this is what happened back in the 60s, right, in the 50s. And there's going to be a huge shift. What that looks like, I don't know, but there's going to be a shift, and there's going to have to be some unity, right, among the Black community and also other races, right? And for people to speak up and say what's not right, and how are we going to navigate this part? Because there's racial, right? And then there's that trauma word again. And so then now we have to deal with this mental health part of this anxiety. And then there's a lack of trust that was already there, but now has become exacerbated. And then how do we remain connected to our counterparts and, and ourselves? And so we're going to have to unite. We're going to have these conversations, right? And not just externally about what's happening. What about us? What are we experiencing? And how are we going to remain united as we navigate this, so that we're not 10, 15 years from now still feeling that same intense anxiety and trauma as we are today? And that's going to be the work as we kind of navigate seeing what changes are coming.
I forgot. If you're just joining us, we're talking about strategies to protect your mental health with licensed clinical social worker and women's leadership coach, Sharice Josie. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. What kinds of conversations are you having with your children? Are they asking you questions about what is going on today? And especially for children of color, are you hearing them ask questions that you may be surprised at their asking and need some help with some answers? Give us a call, 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. I'm wondering, for older African Americans in particular who lived through the 60s and 70s and have dealt with all of this all along, if this is a mobilizing moment, or is this a, Lord, I'm tired?
Yeah.
Because we need that wisdom also, and so when I hear people say, I'm checking out, I'm not listening to news, I don't want to know, anything and so forth, is that just as dangerous in a sense than if we allow ourselves to become totally overwhelmed? Where's the balance?
Yeah, and so it's interesting when people say, turn off social media, don't watch the news, and kind of feel like it's kind of in our faces sometimes, unless you just take away all electronics, it's kind of there. So I think some level of knowledge, of awareness, right? But the overconsumption, we would know, right? And know that by knowing I'm starting to feel an emotion of what I'm reading. I'm starting to feel an emotion of what I'm listening to. Now, okay, my consumption level has reached its capacity, and let me decompress before I do my next thing. But we're going to have to know what's going on at some level, but how much? Definitely minimize, because it's a lot, right? There's a lot of opinions and there's a lot of perspectives. And then after a while, we don't know what to think. And we're kind of back to feeling chaotic, right? Feeling anxious, and back to that unknown feeling, which gets into that heaviness. And we just don't want that to carry on, right, every day.
Yeah. We definitely don't want that happening. Kevin sent us a note from Norfolk. He wants to know, when do you know that it's time to take a time out? What are the signals? I guess when you snap your kid's head off.
Right. Definitely take a time out when you realize that patience is low. You find yourself in a conversation that you're talking probably faster than what you're thinking, because that emotional charge is kind of coming over you now. And now you find yourself in a conversation. I just need to take a break. I need to take a break. Sometimes I always say, sometimes I need to people less, right? I'm like, I've been peopling a lot today. I need to people less, right? And sometimes I will tell my family, hey, listen, I need an hour. I'm going to be in here. I'll see y'all in an hour, right? And I need some silence time, and take that time. But I think a lot of us know when we need that time out. The hard part is actually taking it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is. It's taking it, gracefully bowing out. And I will say it's either to myself or out loud, depending on what the interaction and who is with. I'm like, I'm going to gracefully bow out of this because now I'm giving more, right?
But how do you overcome feeling guilty about doing that? I mean, because some people think if I take the time for myself to do this, then I'm not paying attention to someone else who may need me or whatever. So where's the balance of it's okay to take care of yourself?
Well, I think the guilt will come in if I'm giving you something that I don't have the capacity to give you. Right, I'm engaging in conversation where I'm not coming from a place of calmness or wisdom or even curiosity. I'm coming from a place of overwhelm, anxiety, frustration. I'm no help to the person of the conversation or even the relationship. So for that, I'm going to gracefully bow out. Why? To preserve the relationship, right? To preserve future conversations, because I want to have future conversations with you. But in this moment, in this time, I'm going to have to gracefully bow out, right? And so we can say that, and some people like excuses. Hey, you know what? My phone ringing. Let me call you right back. And the phone not ringing at all. But whatever works for you, just go ahead and do what works for you because you want to preserve this relationship, right? And we don't want to let this current pressure that we're feeling impact us in relationships long term, of relationships that are helpful to us.
Let's talk about spouses.
Yeah.
because it's in any relationship where there are two spouses involved, there's give and take. So sometimes you're carrying the load, sometimes they're carrying the load, etc. So how do you balance who's carrying the load right now? And when do you really know you need to walk away just to let things calm down and then come back together? And I'm not talking about necessarily a political argument, but this, because of so many things that are impacting us, we're talking about the finances now of the household. We're talking about, how are we going to protect our kids? We're talking, we're talking about a lot of issues that spouses have to come together on.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't agree.
I'm going to start off by saying definitely get some therapy or support if you're finding that you're having a hard time, because whatever's happened in your relationship before this is just going to be so exposed now. And so it didn't start now, it's just shining a light now. So definitely get some therapy. But I will say, generally speaking, as a spouse in your relationship, you always want to be able to do for your spouse. Right, we have a financial problem. Right? There's stress in the household. We have stress in our household. So it's not like I'm stressed and you're stressed. No, the household is stressed. So as a team, what do we need to do for the household? Maybe you need to take a break and I'll do this. Maybe you're all going to take a nap. I don't care if you actually sleep or not. We're just going to close our eyes and figure the rest out, right? Play with your fingers, whatever makes you happy, right? But collectively, as a household, as a relationship, we have this issue. So take it off of the individual issue and put on now we're a team working through this issue. What are we going to do as a team to deal with this situation?
And then keep talking to each other until you work it out.
Right.
So your clients are varied. Are they telling you that they're stressed, or are they not? Let me rephrase that. When do you know when you need to go to a therapist? That you tried all the other things. You tried the decompression. You tried walking away and so forth. Is there a magic moment, or do you just kind of innately know I need to find some more help?
Yeah, this is a time where I think it's okay to think and feel out loud. And say, who else can I think and feel out loud? They'll listen to me as a therapist. I don't have to make sense. I don't have to have a point to what I'm saying. This is just what I'm experiencing. And if you feel like you're carrying a lot inside, your mind is going, you're thinking a lot, and just kind of find yourself maybe thinking in circles a little bit, and say, I just need to get this out. And I need to get it out with someone, an actual person that I just want to talk out loud. I want to feel out loud. I want to process out loud. I'm not looking for a particular answer. I don't have a specific question. I want to get this heaviness from the inside out. and then go see a therapist from, yeah.
There are some people though who internalize.
Yeah.
That's their coping mechanism. Good, bad.
I wouldn't say good or bad, because I think how people internalize or not. But what I would say, though, that emotions don't evaporate. So if you're internalizing, they're not just going to go away, right? They don't just vanish because you chose not to do with them. They're sitting somewhere and they need some place to go. And the place that they go may not be the place that you intended it for it to go. That's when someone who has nothing to do with something all of a sudden get the brunt, right? Of what you're feeling. You're like, what happened? What did I do? So those who like to internalize, and usually that's kind of defined as I'm keeping it to myself. I want to think for myself what this means. I want to process through myself on my own. But then after that, then what happens? And we need to know what happens after that, right? The emotions need some place to go. They need some place to land. And we don't want to just sitting in us, just stirring, because they may come out the unexpected times that we didn't ask for. So we don't want that.
When do you know if something has gone from feeling bad to depression?
So depression is a clinical diagnosis, right? And so I definitely would encourage people to get a therapist to diagnose them.
Okay.
You know, if
so they shouldn't just walk around saying I'm depressed.
No, and there's different types of clinical. And there's asthenia, there's major depression. There's different types, and sometimes it's an adjustment disorder, right? I'm just going through a season. Maybe I'm not actually depressed. So definitely see a professional to actually diagnose you. Now, as a therapist, one thing that I actually shy away from is labeling people. I diagnose people because I have to for insurance purposes. But I don't, unless it's really therapeutically necessary, I'm not encouraging my clients to walk around with the label. I don't encourage that at all. Now, there's things that you're dealing with. We're going to deal with that. We're going to talk about how to navigate that, but we're not doing that with a label on your back.
But people tend to label themselves, don't they?
All the time, yes. And when you come to see me, we're gonna shed that, and then we're gonna start over. Yes.
Because that can be limiting, also. What about the friend I was talking about in the beginning of the show, where I said that they, just want to get out and do some activism because they got to do something. Is that a healthy way? Because I know there are healthy ways to deal with stress and anxiety and all that.
Yeah.
And there are unhealthy ways. Let's talk about some of both. What are some healthy ways first? Let's do the positive.
Yeah, I think the healthy way is activism. How some people want to be vocal, right, and become an activist. Some people say, you know what, I'm learning a lot more about politics than I ever did before. I ever thought I was interested, but I'm learning more. That's fine. I think that's a good, positive way of doing it. And some people are saying, you know what, this is teaching me that I've gotten comfortable in a lot of areas, and maybe I'm not taking full advantage of some opportunities that were in front of me because I got so comfortable.
So we could use this as an opportunity for self-growth.
Yes.
Out of all of this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tap into some potential that's just been laying dormant for a long time and see what else is out here for us.
That's major. What are some negative ways of dealing with? Well, some people would say it's not negative because it makes them feel good, but
yeah.
But what are some things that you may be doing to cope that could cause you ultimately harm?
And I know this probably specific. People might disagree with this. But arguing on social media is just so draining and exhausting. It really is. Because
there's no person there.
There's no person. There's no accountability. And then how can you effectively get your point across through whatever you're trying to text? And then if you text this long thing, they're not going to read it anyway. So now you just wasted your time. My thing is we don't waste time over here. So now you just wasted your time typing all of this thing. So in that sense, in terms of limiting your social media, I definitely would. I definitely would be careful with that. I made a joke on a post and no one liked it. They didn't get my joke, I should say. I had to turn my notifications on. I came back 3,700 comments.
Wow.
I said, okay, it was a joke about my daughters and bring her Chromebook to school. I said, but this girl at 3,700. I was like, there's a lot going on that people are really stressed about when I brought my daughter her Chromebook to school because we got 3,700 comments. It's a lot for this little joke. And I turned my notifications off. I don't know. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. I don't know.
Fun.
I'm not participating on. So that's one of the things that really can take what's already heavy and you feel like you're releasing it, but you're really just putting it on something else. You're not releasing it in a healthy way. Definitely would be careful with that. Yeah.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Nathan Richardson. Hey, Nathan. Joins us from Maryland. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good. This is Mr. Frederick Douglass. His alter ego.
Yes.
What's your comment?
Well, this is part of my trip. I was heading from Maryland back to Hampton Roads today to do a job.
Oh.
And just listening to your program as always do. It's always very informative.
Thank you.
We were talking earlier about checking out. And if there's anything that scares me more about people that are checking out at a time when they really need to be checked in completely. This is no time for apathy. That I was thinking about the transition I had to make as a person being engaged all the time. Social media, news, history, the whole thing. And then starting to feel the stress. And I said, I have to find a different way to consume this information. And so, of course, first, you got to have public radio on your radio.
Here.
And then the other thing is just listen to C-SPAN, right? I was on the highway for 2 hours, listened to C-SPAN, listened to the whole hearing about the helicopter crash at DCA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both sides of the argument. Now I had consumed that whole conversation. I don't need to listen to what they got to say on MSNBC or Fox or the internet. I'm settled with myself now that I know the whole thing, right? So we need to do more of that rather than try to consume all this information on social media. Get it from Barbara Ham-Lee. Get it from C-SPAN, right? Yeah, because, it's the choices that we make. I know everybody can't be me, driving around, la. I know you're working. But when you come home, right, listen to the thing on C-SPAN rather than, listen to whatever.
Nathan,
right?
you bring up a really good point. Thanks so much for the call. And hey, be safe on the highway. And we're glad to have you back in Hampton Roads. But he brings up a really good point of receiving information rather than opinion.
Yes.
Because we get hung up in each other's opinions so much that we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to weigh both sides of a story.
Yeah. The other thing Nathan said that I really liked, he said, I'm comfortable with myself. It's like we're consuming all this information trying to get knowledge, but wait a minute, I'm actually comfortable with myself. So there is a limit of what's new, but then do I really need to hear all these varying opinions and perspectives? Wait a minute, I'm actually settled and know the direction I'm in. And so I would encourage people to remind yourselves that you were you before this, right? There's a level of you before we got here. And if you feel like you've lost that or you've gotten away from that, you can tap back into yourself anytime, right?
Yeah,
Today's a good day, right? To tap back in wait, who am I again? And there was a me before all of this consumption of things. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just a time. The uncertainty, I think, is just the biggest issue because people just don't know quite where to turn going forward. Yeah. So how do you protect your peace?
Very delicately. So this is what I encourage people to do when we're going to a season of uncertainty, is that we can't lose who we are. I think the price is too high when we do that. And so being very careful about who we communicate with. Am I talking to someone who's a forward thinker? That's my thing. It may not be everyone else's thing, but who's a forward thinker? Who keeps me grounded? Who gets me out of my head? If I'm spinning out of control and I call you and you're also spinning out of control and we're now spinning together, this was not a helpful use of phone call for me. Right? And so I need to, and I want you all to identify at least a few people of who are these forward thinkers. And I narrow them down to say, who's someone who looks ahead, right, as a goal-oriented person? Who's a funny person who reminds me to laugh? And then who's someone that just lets me be? They're not giving me advice. They're not telling me anything. They just let me be. Get you a list of those 3 people. And so during these uncertain times, like, these are my go-to. And then I have myself. I need to spend time just with myself. No music, no news.
No music.
So, some people like to exercise.
And this is you, yeah.
Right. Some people like to exercise with music and it works out and it helps them. If it helps out for you and you maybe have a certain playlist that helps you for whatever you're going through, good. But if you're doing music and you're like, I'm just going to turn on this and see what they play, be careful, right? Because, it might be a love song and all of a sudden you upset and you're not even in a breakup, but all of a sudden you're sad, right? You're not even, right? And then the next song is some fighting and song and now you mad at the world, So if you are a music person, say music helps me, make sure you have that playlist as intentional of the type of mood that you either want to have or maintain as you're doing something. But let's not just hope whatever comes on suits you, because now you leave and you don't even know how you feel anymore.
Oh my goodness. So what about tapping into your spirituality also?
Yes, unless my father-in-law might be listening now, right?
Yeah. Whatever your spirituality is. I mean, I'm talking to the collective audience here. So, but there's got to be something, meditative reading, meditation, things that will help you to just become more calm. Is that?
So you're going to have to lean on somebody, right? Right. And so whoever or whatever you lean on, make sure that's what you're doing, right? So God, spirituality, meditation, but you're going to have to remain connected, right? And too much external, you're going to disconnect. Whether you realize it in the moment or not, you're going to disconnect. You're going to have to remain connected.
So I think the main thing we can do, one of the main things we can do at this time is really become intentional about our immediate circle, our immediate friends, family, our core family, things of that nature. Yeah. And do you think, Cherise, that out of all of this, that humanity may come back in full force?
I think at this point we already know it's behind door number 1, so we have no choice but to come back from all of this. It may feel a little differently. It might look a little different, but I think we have nowhere else to go but up from this point. And as long as we start having those conversations about the universal theme, right? We all care about our basic needs. We care about our families, our children, our spouses, our household, our livelihoods, our legacy. Let's have those conversations and let's lift each other up. And sometimes somebody's like, I can't even lift myself up. We need to have this moment of I got you, because tomorrow I'm gonna need you to have me, right? But today I got you, and we need to keep that.
This is also a really, really, really good time for us to pay attention to our history and to teach our children and each other about our history, because we can't depend on external forces to keep it in front and center. And I'm reading a book now called Love and Whiskey. It's a story about Uncle Nearest and Jack Daniels, but there's this community, Lynchburg, Tennessee, and they're all talking about their heritage and how Black people and white people work together, in this community, and the mere fact that they knew the grandparents and the great grandparents and the ones before them and all of the history of what people have done. I just think it's so critical to be able to survive and move forward in this time. So, any last minute advice you want to give to our audience?
The biggest takeaway that I want you all to take is to give yourself some grace, When our basic needs are not being met or we feel like they're being threatened, we can feel like we can't focus. And focus on your basic needs because you can't do much else, right? If your basic needs are not met. In those moments that you can intentionally breathe, I want you to breathe. And if you're breathing out and say, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing the best that I can. We're going to make this through. And you're just talking to yourself, no one in particular. And we need to take this moment by moment right now and look for some opportunities.
Yeah.
There are opportunities. There's some talented people out here, right? Tap into some opportunity that you have or some stuff that you're like, I've always been wanting to do. Go ahead and do this now. Go ahead and do it now.
That's very, very cool. I tell you, I don't know how nobody knows ultimately what all of this is going to mean, but I want to go back to that hope piece that we talked about at the top of the show, because if we lose hope, then it's guaranteed that we're going to continue to be stressed.
Right. Right.
Or worse, right?
Right.
But if we can tap into that hopeful period and really focus locally, then we can make our community stronger. We can do some things. So there could be some good things, even though there are a lot of scary things that are happening right now. And that's the one last thing we'll talk about, and that's fear. How do you overcome fear?
Build a relationship with fear.
Interesting.
We're going to be fearful, right? We're all going to have these moments of fear. And then there's moments people kind of pretend like I'm not scared or say I'm not scared. Well, we are. Same thing with anxiety. Doesn't like secrets. Neither does fear. Acknowledge, this is scaring me a little bit. I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone. I don't know what's going to happen. Say it out loud. We're going to lessen the power of the fear, and we're going to give it a voice now. And now you become more in control of whatever you think is scaring you.
So it doesn't make you less of a person if you acknowledge it.
No.
It actually makes you a stronger person.
It does.
By acknowledging it. Wow. That's just awesome. Sharice, always a pleasure
I love
to
being
have
here.
you here on the show, and we will definitely have you back. And I gotta ask you, how are the girls? Are they doing okay?
Girls are doing well. Yes,
and we getting another book coming out soon.
Yes, they're nice.
For those of you who don't know, Sharice has two beautiful daughters who keep her on her toes, her and her husband on their toes. Absolutely. Thank you so very much. And audience, I hope that we were able to give you some things to think about, some ways, and if nothing else, that you know that you're not alone out there right now, that a lot of people are going through the things that we've been talking about. And so I hope you've gained some additional tools to put in your Protect Your Mental Health toolbox. Now, you can listen to this show again, or any of our programs for that matter, by going to whro.org/anotherview. And you can find us on Spotify or wherever you go for your podcast listening pleasure. Next week on Another View, this is funny. It's not funny, but our crew has loved talking about this. So the personal use of marijuana is legal in Virginia, but there's a growing population of folks who are using it, and you may be very, very surprised as to who they are. So tune in next week. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. And we want to give Dr. Barry Graham a very happy birthday, because his birthday is this coming Monday, and we won't talk to him until next week. So happy birthday, Barry. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Breathe and believe ultimately in hope. Let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.